Being young has never been more difficult, but it's probably not because of what you think. So, I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about AI recently. You're probably sick and tired of it, but I think this is something important that I haven't heard being talked about anywhere. So, I think it's important to mention. So, as a student in high school, I'm studying right now to eventually be accepted to eventually be accepted into college, of course, where I could get a degree and then a job. But with AI, obviously, when I finish high school, which 2.5 years, the job market will be a lot different. Just about 3 years ago was when ChatGPT was released, and obviously you've seen how it's been affecting jobs like programming and all of that stuff. Especially this year, we've seen how AI is not slowing down; it's actually expanding and growing exponentially faster. And with some people say AGI is gonna happen between 2027 and 2030. And if we track that timeline, let's go with 2030. So by then, I will only be 20. Right now, when that happens, we have no way to know if any job will exist. I am an optimist, so I think it will, but definite that jobs will obviously exist, but I don't think in the same way that they were last year or even this year. So, which is interesting because I'm supposed to be studying, learning, so I could have knowledge that I could use to get a job, but many of these jobs that are the best jobs like 5 years ago are starting to die out. Like I mentioned programming in the beginning, it's not dying out, but it's quickly being replaced with AI, especially as it gets more advanced and as it gets more accurate, and as we are able to prompt it better. So it's interesting because I really don't know when it comes to applying for higher education or for pursuing a certain career. I have no way to know if by the time I'm even I've passed the necessary exams to be accepted into that field, if it will exist by then. And so I think schools are kind of I think they're ignoring this, and even the education that I'm receiving now for exams that I will take in at the end of this year or later next, or like the end of next year, how those tests could be, they won't be different because that's what they taught us, but they could be even more irrelevant than they are now, because I've seen in school where they're starting to revert back uh, from tests and assignments online to back to paper because to try to prevent the use of ChatGPT and whatnot. But obviously that's not a solution. But you can just imagine by mid 2027, relevancy of the tests are gonna be exponentially less relevant than they already are at this moment. When I think of career-wise, obviously the safe jobs, like a few years ago, were doctor and lawyer and engineer and all those stuff. Those were the safe jobs. But those jobs are the ones that are most easily replaced. Maybe not lawyer. Doctor will take more time, I'm sure. And lawyer, but like engineering and accountant, an engineer and accountant, those jobs are very easily replaced and are already being replaced. The jobs that will be replaced, we can assume, are the ones that can be most sped up. So obviously the advantage AI gives us is more knowledge and more speed. An AI agent will be, even now, is already more accurate and hundreds of times faster than a, a human employee. And so for jobs like engineering and all that stuff, it will be very easy to replace those, as there are pretty binary jobs that are kind of yes or no. Like programming is the easiest one, and so it becomes interesting because maybe in the future the safe jobs will actually be the creative ones that have always been the risky ones. The upside today of creative jobs is creative jobs have the most amount of possible money to be earned, when like actors and all of those stuff, but obviously they also have no minimum wage, so you're not guaranteed anything, and so you could be searching for years for any sort of job that will get you any type of money. Creative jobs could also be replaced, but those are the only ones that we don't know. All the other jobs we can almost guarantee will be replaced. Creative jobs are the ones that we are not sure. They have like an asterisk. They have an asterisk on them. And I think creative jobs are less likely to be replaced only because they're less likely to be replaced because they don't rely on necessarily on quantity or even quality in some extent. Perfect art isn't something that exists, and like perfect math, typically there is only one way to solve an equation. But with art, obviously there is no really right or wrong. That's something that us humans are really good about, that we are really good at, and machine will be good at. It will be good at, but it will have no upside because we don't rely art the less quantity of art, the better it typically is. For example, a music artist created 1,000 albums today. Those albums would have no meaning because they're not special. What makes typically art special is how scarce it is. The other thing about art is it's a communal thing, so we gather around it and talk about music and about movies and TV shows. All types of art has communities that support it. The the last point I will make is the backstory of it. When you know the backstory of a music artist or director or an actor, you can see how their backstories are reflected in what they make, and that makes it special because you can relate to those things. To conclude, I think it's just an interesting thing that maybe should be discussed about more. I don't know what solutions we could implement for this. but